Hey there, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I am going to make a little Easter card. I have this My Favorite Things Somebunny Sweet stamp set and I want to ink it up. So what I'm starting with is a piece of Canson XL watercolor paper. I have this trimmed down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and I have a stamp block. And I have put some Distress Oxide ink on that stamp block. I've just stuck it on there and I'm spritzing that with water. I'm cleaning up my mess on my glass mat, and then I'm going to just stamp that right down onto my cardstock or my watercolor paper, and I'll peel that up, and then I can kind of see, where you pick it up, the ink is gonna kind of be a little bit more wet on one side. So I'm dabbing that up with my microfiber cloth, and then I'm going to spritz again one time, which probably wasn't necessary. And then I'll stamp it down again, and I still end up with the same issue. What I could do to avoid this is just leave the stamp block on there for probably an hour or so to let that dry, but I'm impatient, so I just picked it up and I'm going to set that off to the side to dry while I work on my stamping. So in my Mini Misty, I have that adorable little stamp set called My Favorite Things Somebunny Sweet. It's the Pure Innocence line, and I have some Express It cardstock, and I'm going to ink it up with some Memento Tuxedo Black ink, my favorites for Copic coloring or any alcohol marker coloring. And I am going to color these with my Copics. So recently I had watched Sandy Allnock's Human Rainbow video that she had, and she has some downloads. And so I wanted to try doing some different colors of skin tones. And so that's what I'm doing. So I'm starting off with my E13, and obviously, it would probably be really good to practice your colors. This is what is so great about the Human Rainbow downloads. And they're free to download, so that's really nice because she wants everybody to work on their, the different colors that you can use to get different ethnicities, because after all, we are all very, very different. So that second color that I used was E35, and now I'm using a V15. I know that seems a little bit interesting to some folks, but you just got to try it, because I'm telling you, it gives it a more realistic look. And then I go back over it with my E35, and then I'll go back over that with my E13. I tend to go from lightest to darkest, and I know that some people who are very experienced they go darkest to lightest, but I don't find that I still get a very good blend that way, and I find that I use more of the ink than I want to, so that is why I still go from lightest to darkest. For her hair, I'm using something a little bit different as well. I started off with the E5, I think it's E57, and then I'm moving on to the E29, and I am moving on then to the E49 for my darkest color. But I will say that Sandy's charts, the Human Rainbow charts, have a lot of dark colors potentially in there, and I just don't own a lot of the dark colors, so I may have to splurge and get a few of the darker colors so that I can work on different hair colors and just kind of broaden my horizons there, because it's a lot more fun when you can branch out. I'm going to move on now to her dress, and this was a total experimentation as well. So the RVs for me don't always cooperate. So I started off with RV04, and it's a bright pink. It's a really pretty bright pink. And that's what I thought I was going to have as my main color. So then I move on to RV06, because I want to try and put some pleats into her dress. If this is an Easter dress, it would be really cute if it had a lot of pleats. However, I then moved on to RV66 to work with those pleats. And I've done pleats so many times, but this was just not working. It was not blending. These colors, I don't know if they were just too different on the spectrum, or if it's just the RVs, sometimes they're a little temperamental. I couldn't get them to blend, and it just didn't look right. It looked kind of silly. So I end up not scrapping it, although I won't lie, I did think about it. I thought about just starting completely over. But instead, I tried to just kind of add more of that RV66, and in the end, because I thought that just wasn't working, I end up going over that with my RV66 and basically just blending that out. So it's subtle, but at least the color is a little bit better. And it's not the best I've ever done, but it will work. And then I'm going to move on to her shoes. I'm using C5 and I'm going to use C7. And this is what I'm talking about for Sandy Allnock's color charts. She tends to use she goes even further with hair, like C9, which makes sense because, we all have different hair colors and skin colors and whatnot. So I'm going to need to branch out a little bit more. And then I'll color her ties in, and then I'm going to go in and start coloring the little Easter eggs that I have. I went ahead and decided to use pastel colors, and I went super simple. I sped this up 4 times because I don't really do any shadowing on these eggs. They're not the focal point. I just use each of the 1 colors, BG01, RV02, YG03. I think I use BV. For the purple I use BV04? No, BV02. And then I go back in and just, I go back over those colors once again and kind of try to darken what I already have using the same color, which is something that you can do. Then I fussy cut all those out because I do not have the die that goes with these, although that would have made life a little easier. And then I'm going to move on to stamping my sentiment. So I've just got a piece of black cardstock that I have from my stash that I have put my embossing bag over. I stamped that with Versamark ink, and then I'm going to cover that with my white embossing powder. Then I will heat that till that is smooth and melted. And when that is all melted, I will let that dry and I'll trim it down. To adhere my card panel to my card base, which is just a hot pink color of cardstock, I'm just using some liquid glue. And then I'm going to just trim down my sentiment a little bit more, giving it a bit of an angle. I put foam tape on the back of her just to have her have a little bit of dimension. And then I pop her up, and then I'm going to use that liquid glue on the rest of my card. So I'll use it for the sentiment, and I'll let that dry a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and put my eggs down as well. I love that sentiment, "You're a good egg." It's just cute. And that little girl holding the bunny is adorable, which I did go over that with C3. I just didn't film that. I just put some highlights on the bunny as well, so he wasn't just one solid color. And then I'm going to flip that over and trim off the excess from the sentiment. And while I have that open, I am going to work on the inside of my card. Originally, I had picked raspberry distress oxide that I was stamping this down with, but the distress oxides work a little differently. They stamp great, but using that color on top of a dark pink color anyway, it just wasn't going to show up. So I grabbed Dusty Concord, inked up my little girl, and stamped that right over the top of that. And then I grab some Memento Tuxedo black ink for my sentiment, which is just the Happy Easter, and I stamp that right over the top of her. So that'll finish off the inside of my card. And for a final bit of embellishment, I do grab some Nuvo Glitter Gloss. No, this is not Nuvo Glitter Gloss. This is just the Nuvo Gloss. And I'm just going to put a few drops of that down. But I did do the Nuvo Glitter Gloss Aqua Shimmer pen over the eggs. I just didn't film that either. And once I'm done with that, that's going to finish off this card. So if you liked this card, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And as always, thank you guys for stopping by.